what's up, y'all? My name is Chris Abbott, but all my friends just call me Abbo. I was in youth ministry for 15 years. I've been a worship leader for 20, and so I've had a lot of opportunities to be able to recruit volunteers and figure out exactly how to build my team. So I've taken everything that I've learned over the last 2 decades and condensed it down into this video. So let's dive in and talk about how to recruit church volunteers coming up. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, this channel is all about helping pastors and church leaders be more effective in social media, technology, and basically reaching the next generation for Jesus. So with this video, I specifically wanted to kind of dive into how to build a team, right? How to recruit volunteers. This is something that as your church grows, every single pastor and church leader needs to learn. It took me a while to learn it myself, right? But over the past 20 years of leading worship, right? 15 years in youth ministry, I kind of figured out a couple of things. And so I just kind of put together a couple of points to be able to help you in order to recruit new volunteers. So let's dive in. All right, number 1, ask. Okay, I know this one seems really obvious, but a lot of times we're so worried about like getting rejected and people telling us no or like ducking us for weeks later that we just never actually ask. Or when we do, we kind of like soften it. We're like, hey, man, just, we sure do need some help back in the kids ministry, and just, I don't know, man, maybe pray about one day, maybe next year, helping out or something. So don't be wishy-washy and don't try to camouflage the ask, right? Just ask very clear. I've learned that I always had the best results whenever I just straight up asked people to volunteer. Right now, I've got a brother-in-law who is the best in the world at this. I've literally like just sat there and learned from him as he recruits volunteers. He builds a team better than anyone I've ever met in my entire life. Right? So when we actually started middle school ministry at our church, he had to build the middle school ministry from scratch, and he wasn't allowed to steal any of the high school youth leaders, right? Which is tough. These are seasoned youth leaders who have been around for a couple of years. And so he had to build it from scratch, starting at 0. And he did an incredible job. Here's basically what he did. Not only did he ask people, but first he cast vision and he kind of talked about the why. And I think this is huge, and this can help all of us, right? So basically what he would do is he would just come up, and if you've ever tried to recruit volunteers, especially for middle school ministry, you know just how hard it is. What he did is instead he completely flipped it, and he would just come in and just, hey, John, hey, listen, man, I don't know about you, but, when I was in middle school, it was a really tough time. Like high school, was fun. I was a wrestler. I was pretty popular and stuff. But, man, middle school is kind of a weird time. It's an awkward time for most kids. And I don't know about you, but, like, man, middle school was the first time I walked into a party and all my friends were drinking. Right, man, it was the first time where someone offered me drugs. It was the first time where, a buddy of mine started smoking weed and offered me some, right? It was the first time where some of my friends and the people I knew started having sex with their girlfriends. It was the first time I was ever exposed to pornography, right? And he just said, man, what would happen if we could get to people before it's too late? What would happen if we could reach 6th, 7th, and 8th graders before any of that stuff actually happens, right? Because by the time they get to high school and they're already drinking or in drugs or addicted to pornography, man, what if we could get them in middle school before any of that stuff ever happened? Man, would you be willing to just pray about being a leader in the middle school ministry? Man, I'm just putting together a team, and I just need great people. Man, you don't have to have any experience, but I just need great people who love God, who are passionate about trying to reach this next generation for Jesus. Now, imagine if somebody heartfelt extended an invitation and asked you to volunteer after doing something like that. Right? It just makes sense because you're casting vision. You're not just saying like, hey, John, man, would you be willing to help me out in the middle school ministry? Right? But you're casting a little bit of vision. So maybe spend some time thinking about your why or why you need volunteers for this specific position, and maybe cast a little bit of vision and then just simply ask. All right, number 2, get specific, right? So one of the things that I think we all kind of do, especially in church, is it's easy to ask for volunteers or ask someone to become a youth leader or a kids leader, but we don't get specific about what they're actually going to be doing. So you'll have much better success if you get specific and ask people for specific roles. So I remember when I started volunteering in a youth group for the very first time, more than 20 years ago now, and I remember like the youth pastor just said, hey, here's all I need you to do, man. 80% of youth ministry is just showing up. I just need you to show up every single Wednesday, man, just be consistent and just talk to kids. That's all we need, man. Just show up, be consistent, and talk to kids. Ask them how their day went, ask them how school's going, ask them about their girlfriend, sports, right? It's not rocket surgery. Man, when you show up, don't talk to the other leaders while you're there. I just need you to show up, just talk to kids. If you see a kid you've never met before, go up, introduce yourself, and just ask them about his story. That type of specific made it easy for me to understand not only what he was looking for, but also what to do when I showed up on Wednesday night, right? It's easy to kind of start to talk to some of the other leaders and kind of catch up because it's people you haven't seen all week long. But when you know that your job is to show up, be consistent, and talk to kids, man, that's what you do. The youth pastor did the exact same thing. He just said, hey, man, I'd love for you to take over worship in the youth band. Man, would you be willing to come out? Basically, you just have to choose 3 songs every single week. Man, you can pick the band that you want, or we can help you recruit a band. And then all you're going to do is just have a rehearsal once a week, any night that you want. You're going to go over those 3 songs, and then every single Wednesday, you'll be responsible for getting here early, turning on the equipment, doing a sound check, and then executing worship. Man, would you be willing to do that? Well, the cool thing about that was it's not like I said yes to something coming into it and have no idea what was going to be expected of me, right? I knew I was going to have to put together the set list. I knew I was going to have to manage the band. I knew I was going to have to recruit volunteers for the band. We were going to have a separate rehearsal night. I knew we were going to have to get there early in order to do sound check. And then we'd also be responsible for actually doing worship during service, right? So that type of specificity really, really helps people to know exactly what they're getting into. It's also going to help your stick rate, right? Because people don't know what they're getting into. Oftentimes they get there, if it's not what they expected, they might leave pretty quickly. So get specific. All right, so before I get to my last 3 points, I want to hear from you. What are some different, unique ways? What are some things that you have done in order to be able to build a team and recruit volunteers in your church? I want to hear from you. Post them in the comments below, especially if there's something that I'm not thinking of. I'm constantly trying to get better and learn how to be a better leader and how to recruit volunteers better. So let me know in the comments below. All right, number 3, focused on their benefits, not your needs. Now, one of the mistakes I see a lot of organizations make, and not just churches, is whenever you start talking about volunteers, you start talking about need. People don't give to need, they give to vision. Right? So make sure, don't talk about your needs, right? Why you need new kids volunteers or anything like that, but actually cast vision for what they can accomplish back there, right? And just say, man, can you imagine how great it would feel to get up on stage in the kids ministry every single week and have the kids start chanting your name? Can you imagine what it's like to have a bunch of 6, 7, and 8-year-olds high-fiving you in the hallways of the church because like, hey, man, that's Super Abbo over there, right? Start talking about some of the benefits of being a volunteer and of serving in that ministry instead of just talking about the needs, right? Don't just talk about how you only have 2 volunteers back there and they're burnt out. You're not sure if one of them is going to be leaving the church or not, right? And some of the families are thinking about going to another church because there's not enough volunteers back there to help out. Man, don't talk about needs. Talk about the benefits to them, and you're going to get a lot more volunteers that way. All right, number 4, simple and easy. So you want to make it very simple and very easy for people to go through the process at your church to start serving and start volunteering. Right? So maybe you have this on your website, or maybe there's a form that they fill out. Whatever the system is that you use at your church, have you tried it? Have you gone onto the website and tried signing up to volunteer, right? Have you filled out that form, and what's the process? The easier you make this, the better chance you're going to have at recruiting new volunteers and building a team, right? You have to lower the barrier of entry. Now, there are probably some positions that you're going to have a higher barrier to entry. For example, in the kids ministry at our church, you have to have been going to the church for at least 6 months, and you have to have a background check. Now, that just makes sense, right? You want to make sure that you're keeping everybody safe back there. You want to make sure that you've known the person, they've been going to the church long enough, and you want to make sure that they pass a federal background check. But for somebody to work in the parking lot and help park cars, or maybe work as a greeter or an usher, right? Those people can start coming to the church on Sunday and plug in the very next Sunday. You want to make it simple and easy to volunteer, and you want to test that process, right? What is the process for signing up to volunteer? What's the onboarding process to getting them up to speed in that position? And then what's the follow-up process, right? If somebody signs up to volunteer and be an usher or to be a greeter, right? Do you have a person that's going to follow up with them? Does that fall to you? Does that fall to the leader of the ministry? And what's the follow-up system? Are they just trying to remember to contact that person, right? What happens if they text them and don't hear back? Or what happens if they call and leave a voicemail and don't hear back, right? So it's important to have some systems in place for follow-up. So understanding how easy it is to actually sign up, what the onboarding process is to get them up to speed, and what the follow-up system is in order to get them plugged in. All right, and finally, number 5, provide different levels of engagement. Now, not every single person is going to want to dive in and volunteer in the kids ministry every single Sunday for both services on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. Providing an opportunity for them to have different levels of engagement is going to provide you a chance to recruit a lot more volunteers, and it's going to give them the freedom, and you're probably going to have a much better chance of keeping people for longer periods of time so they don't get burnt out. So maybe it's once a month, maybe it's every other week, maybe it's just a part-time position. Whatever that looks like, consider different different ways that you can offer different levels of engagement. So for example, I remember I had a leader in the church came to me and I was already leading worship. I was already helping out in the youth group and I was helping out at a ton of different events and other things. But I remember she came to me and just said, hey Chris, here's the deal. We're getting ready to roll out this new ministry, right? We're gonna have donut carts out at least for the next couple of months where we're just handing out free donuts and free waters. Man, would you and your wife be willing just to kind of man one of those donut carts and just hand out donuts and drinks to people? I'd probably just need you, about twice a month on a Sunday morning, and you only need to show up to service about 15 minutes early just to pass out some donuts and hand out some bottles of water. Would you be willing to do that? Now, if she'd come to me and just explained everything she needed and said, hey, I need you to get there an hour early. You're going to set everything up. You're going to be there every single week. I need you at both services, right? I'd be like, no, I've already got too much stuff going on, right? But it's like, hey, she's just like, you're going to show up. I'm going to have everything set up for you. The donut cart's already going to be there. All you have to do is show up 15 minutes early, twice a month, hand out donuts to people and just be friendly. That's right up my alley. I love talking to folks anyway, right? She made it nice and easy, and I, of course, said yes, even though I was serving in other areas. So consider having a couple of different ways for people to get involved and some different levels of engagement, right? Maybe it's once a month in the kids' ministry, maybe it's every other week. Whatever it is, have them commit to something a little bit smaller. That way, if they really like it, they can always ramp things up. But it's better to start small and to give people a couple of different options. All right, so now that you know how to build a team and recruit a bunch more volunteers, you are ready to start bringing in a ton of new visitors. So check out my 2-part video series, How to Use Facebook Ads for Your Church, Part 1, and we'll see you soon.